I got to ask you this, my friend. It's always good to touch base with you, but right off the bat, how disappointed were you in the Washington Redskins effort on Monday night?
I mean, just ridiculously embarrassed. I actually just finished writing an article about just the fact that they didn't look prepared offensively, and Dallas was all over them. Sean Lee had a huge game, but it just seemed like this team is and the coaching staff in particular offensively, they will not throw the ball down the field. And when they do, there's a great success with, Kirk Cousins and Deshaun Jackson. I'd like to see them be more aggressive down the stretch.
Yeah, well, it's funny because they beat the Giants and they're throwing the ball down the field and the Giants can't stop them on third down and all is wonderful in Washington Redskins land. And then they come back against Matt Castle, mind you, and a game they must win where they never lose at home this year and they lay an absolute dud. I mean, it's amazing. To me, it tells me two things. They're still not ready to really be competitive in the NFL, let alone the NFC East, and maybe it's smoke and mirrors, and they still lack a little confidence when it comes to the quarterback, and maybe that's on, as you alluded to, the coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree. And there are fans who are torn here because there are fans who are clearly in Kirk Cousins' camp, and then there's fans who are in Robert Griffin's camp. And I think you can seriously see that Kirk Cousins does some things very well, but you also can see that he's also limited. And I'm wondering if this coaching staff is really, just afraid to turn him loose to see maybe what some of those deficiencies are. But I tell you what, if you're trying to win a division and make the playoffs, you've got to let guys play football. It's week 12, and Jay Gruden's still saying that they're a young team and that, they try to keep games close in the fourth quarter as far as being conservative. The guys started 12 games now. You've got to let them play football.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, eventually you have to just kind of take the reins off and you let these guys go out. And if they make mistakes, they make mistakes. But is it also a question now you're starting to realize down there, albeit the NFC East is bad, every team lacks a ton of talent and every team has been snake bitten with injuries. But is this a case where the Washington Redskins are who they are? They look like they're going to finish a 6-10, 7-9.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also a reminder, too, that if Dallas never had, injuries to Romo and then also Des Bryant early, they probably would have ran away with this division.
Agree 100%. Agree 100%. If Tony Romo's healthy, they win this division by 3 or 4 games. I don't care what anyone tells me. I'm not changing my opinion on that. I think that's almost a fact. I think you can write that in.
That's a journalistic opinion, which is the correct opinion. I think fans don't want to see that. They obviously want to hold their team to their heart, but our job is for us to think with our minds, and Dallas is clearly the supreme team in this division if healthy, and it wouldn't have been close. They probably would have had this thing wrapped up a week ago.
You have a situation down there with Alfred Morris where it looks like his career with the Redskins is coming to an end, and good character guy, runs the ball hard, but you see the lack of carries for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm not as tuned as the Redskins, obviously, as you are. There's a situation in our backyard with DeMarco Murray, who after a huge win sits down with Jeffrey Lurie on the plane ride home and voices his displeasure, his lack of touches, and the fact that he was basically sold a good bill by Chip Kelly, how they were going to use him, and it hasn't panned out. I think it's kind of similar situations here, but from what you guys are dealing with down there with a guy like Morris, how is that being viewed? Because I can tell you with DeMarco Murray, a lot of people are looking at him like, hey, you signed the contract, you came over here from Dallas. Jerry Jones was basically the GM, the owner, and the head coach. So it's kind of an open-door policy. You can't really do that with Chip Kelly because of his personality. He gets rid of strong personality players. So I guess maybe there's not a question there, but I kind of think it's an interesting dynamic because you're looking at the Eagles and the Redskins, who kind of have the same situation here with their featured running backs, if you will, veteran guys, but certainly under different circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Alfred Morris is a class act, and he's just trying to find a positive in a negative situation. We're talking about a 3-time Pro Bowl back who's pretty much been pushed to the side, so to speak, for a rookie who's had some fumbling issues on top of that. I'm not a big fan of what Jay's done with this whole situation. I think Jay Gruden's done some things well this year, but he's also mismanaged some personalities and some guys that, should have more of a role on this team. When you look at DeMarco Murray, though, shame on him, Q, because this guy wanted the money, left Dallas to get the money with Philly, and sometimes these are things that happen. You know, it always looks like the grass is greener on the other side. And for DeMarco Murray, literally, team colors and money in his pocket. But you know what? He hasn't performed well. And I think you're starting to see in Dallas that perhaps that offensive line and Des Bryant and Tony Romo helped make him look better than what he was. And in retrospect, the offensive line in Dallas doesn't look as dominant this year as they did last year because their running game isn't the same without DeMarco Murray. So I'm not going to feel sorry for the Cowboys or DeMarco Murray in this situation. They both thought that there was better situations that awaited them, and now both of them are suffering for it.
1:35 on a Wednesday. We'll take you up to 2. Lake Lewis does a great job covering the NFL as well as the association, Sports Journey, Sports Journey Media, and, of course, About.com. Let's switch gears a little bit. It is a polarizing story. It is a polarizing topic. And when you talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, you've covered the NBA for a long time, down in the D.C. area, down when you were in Florida. And now they bring in Jerry Colangelo, who basically, to me, is hired to clean up Sam Hinkie's mess. And you can talk about collecting assets and draft picks. Everyone's going to have their own opinion, their own take on this. I stand by this. So for the listening audience, if I'm repeating myself and beating a dead horse, I apologize. But I don't know if you know my take on this. I'm a believer where even if you play competitive basketball, I've seen teams over the years as 7th and 8th seeds make runs, have upsets. And to me, playoff basketball is priceless experience for a young team. And I think, coincidentally, when you have that type of run, even if you lose in the first round or so, you show an upside to pending free agents. And I think that always helps kind of allure some free agents. What you're seeing here is not only a disgrace, it's a god-awful product, but the NBA basically had to step in and say enough is enough with this. So you've covered the league for a lot of years. What is your take on what the Sixers are doing and this whole philosophy of just tanking it, collecting assets, and hoping to get the right lottery balls, the ping pong balls, and to maybe find a couple hits here and there on the draft?
You know what? That just that comment right there. You know, as far as the lottery, the Sixers have literally created a king-size bed in the lottery over the last decade. You know, they've been central figures in it, and they've drafted some really good players from really good programs. You know, if you look at Okafor coming from Duke, you look at Nerlens Noel coming from Kentucky, you look at Joe Embiid, who obviously we know about the foot problem, but he's coming from Kansas. So these are kids that are coming from winning programs. And you even drafted Michael Carter-Williams, who came from Syracuse, and then you just get rid of him for some decent players. But I still was scratching my head on that move. You know, I just didn't understand what they were trying to accomplish in Philadelphia. And right now, you're wasting away a kid in Okafor who's having a Rookie of the Year type campaign. No one knows because Philadelphia is just that god-awful. The only thing they know about is this kid punching out someone in Boston. It's a shame because Philadelphia is a town that is a basketball town as well. You know, you talk about the Big Four in college there. Fans in Philadelphia know great basketball. And for their pro team, which is a storied franchise that has some of the greatest players in history come from there, be this bad, everyone in that building should be ashamed of themselves.
When you look at this being a potential destination place for free agents, do you think from your time covering the league and have your dealings with players, young players and veteran players, do you think they'll look at this and it'll scare them off, or will they look at this and say, well, you know what, we can deal with this for 2 or 3 years? I mean, the bottom line is there are going to be some players that are just going to want to collect a check, and they'll go there to collect a check.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It depends. I mean, now that you have a new person in there, a person that has some credibility in the league on top of that, that's a good move for Philadelphia. And I do think the league kind of forced that to clean this mess up. But now it's going to come down to coaching. You know, there's a guy out there right now, in Mark Jackson, who I think could be a good fit for some of these younger players. He's a New York guy, so he's not too far from that market in Philly. Played against the Sixers, for several years in the same division, so he can understand what's lacking there and what the fan base would want to see. And Q, you and I both know that fans there have betrayed the team because they've been betrayed as season ticket holders. But if they get the right pieces in place, that place will be rocking again overnight.
Yeah, but how long does that take? How long should a fan tolerate that? How long should players tolerate that too? Because Brett Brown is a guy that has come over from a winning program, a championship caliber program with the San Antonio Spurs and Pop, and they like his patience. But he was also ticked off that they didn't confide in him with the MCW trade. Also with Embiid last year with not doing what he needed to do. Okafor basically lying about the incident, and then you lose the trust of your head coach as a young player. So when do you kind of say enough is enough?
That's a tough situation for him, too, because he has come from a winning organization, and he wasn't basically given everything that's needed. In this situation, I just think they have to start from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I mean you've got some players there. Maybe you've got some assets that you can move, for some other players, maybe some other draft picks this year. I would say 2 years before fans there really have a mutiny. They're not obviously going anywhere this year, but you need to sell for next year. You've got some decent pieces, nice draft pick, and perhaps a new coach. And that sells hope for that 1 year where you need to see improvement.
I don't think they're getting rid of Brett Brown. I think they're going to actually give Brett Brown a contract extension because, again, he's endured 19-63, 18-64, 1-21. So I think that's something to be there's some equity that he's kind of built with the franchise because I don't know how many coaches can endure that. I want you to listen to Antonio Davis. Jumped on with me last Thursday and, played in the league for 16, 17 years now, doing some good work with ESPN. But this was his take on if there would be a situation where, how he would look at it if he was a free agent, if he wanted to play in Philadelphia after all this nonsense.
I can't even look at the way they've spent money and say, okay, at least they're going to spend money and try to get some guys in here. They've spent about $18 million. There's 17 guys in the league, 18 guys in the league making more than $17, $18 million. So I don't see anything that would persuade me to come there to say, hey, they're doing this the right way.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think Antonio's right. And we're talking about a guy that played in Indiana where it was about a team concept, and that team was a team that used to push Chicago. I think, again, though, they have some young pieces in place. It's not like they've shied away from, it's not like the Sixers traded out of their, top 2 pick or number 3 pick. They didn't trade out of that. And that's a team that's showing you that they really don't want to spend money. So
but they have maybe 3 players on the team like that can play. Maybe 3.
Listen, when I see Hollis Thomas from Georgetown as a central figure on their team, and that's not knocking his game. He's a self-made player, but that tells me a lot because this was a guy that wasn't even considered, a draft pick. He was a free agent, and when you have your roster littered with those type of players, there is something to be said about that. I for the life of me, the plan used to be. I think everyone around the league circle saw that the plan was build up your equity with your bigs.
Right.
The saying was you win with bigs. So they went out and they kept drafting bigs. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they drafting so many bigs? They don't have guards. So it just didn't seem like there was a plan. And it almost seemed like maybe they were trying to put themselves in the sweepstakes for LeBron of a couple of years ago, maybe Kevin Durant coming up. Those guys aren't going to Philadelphia. Let's not fool ourselves. You're going to have to build something from within in order to entice a guy to even think about coming there. So I do agree with you in the sense that I think Brett Brown has some equity in that organization that they've kept him around because most coaches don't last this long if they're not seen as a viable option.
Right.
So obviously they see something with him. And let's face it, would not look good around league circles, and Popovich has that kind of power around the league that it would not look good if you did one of his guys wrong.
I agree.
Remember, the Lakers are still being kicked for the way they treated Mike Brown.
Yep.
Even though Mike
Yep.
Brown may not have been their guy, there are people who still haven't forgiven them around league circles for that. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
So this guy's a guy that's there. But I think that the Sixers are going to have to hope they hit a home run with a kid like Ben Simmons or someone and just start getting fans back in that building, because I feel bad for fans up in Philadelphia. You know, I have family up there, and the Sixers are beloved. And just to see them this bad, man, there's some college basketball teams that might be able to run with them right now.
144 on a Wednesday. All right, my friend. I'll let you get out of here. Great insight as always. Enjoy the weekend slate of games. We'll talk next week. Great insight as always, pal.
Take care now.